Look at Thomas Jefferson. Whoa! I'm sorry. I did not see you there. I didn't see you. Oh, God. Hello, my name is Blaze Junkin. This amazing soil you're standing on right now was not an easy piece of cake to get. In fact, 24,000 people died for you to be independent. So be grateful! Sorry for that little outburst. It all starts back in 1763. The British had won the French and Indian War, which is wonderful and handy-dandy for them, but it came with a price, and that was dead. To put it in simpler terms for you scallywags, that means you maxed out your mom's credit card one too many times buying V-Bucks. Comedy! And the British desperately needed a way to pay off this debt, so they decided to use a little method called mercantilism. The British passed many acts getting a large sum of money from taxes, and the colonists weren't too happy about it. They protested, and England repealed some of the acts, but not all. To boycott British tea, the colonists did a little dirty deed, and they dumped crates of tea into Boston Harbor, costing the British over $1 million in today's money. So, the British passed the Intolerable Acts, which stripped away a lot of freedom and privileges the colonists had. They had enough, so they called the First Continental Congress of 1774 in Philadelphia. A majority did not want independence at that time, so they decided they would keep protesting British goods. The British sent soldiers to Lexington and Concord to arrest Central leaders John Hancock and Samuel Adams, because they weren't too happy with what they were scheming. The colonists met face to face with the British with their guns at Old North Bridge over the Concord River. No one knows who took the first shot, but it was known as the shot heard across the world. The British were forced to retreat. The Battle of Lexington and Concord was known as the First Battle of the American Revolution. Colonial leaders held the Second Continental Congress in May 1775. They met once again in Philadelphia. They made George Washington the leader of the Continental Army. They appointed him because they knew he was a humble man, and they knew he would not try to become king. By choosing him, they were also uniting the North and the South colonies. Next, the Battle of Bunker Hill took place, where Patriots took a peninsula outside of Boston, and the British tried to retake it. The Patriots ran out of gunpowder and had to abandon Bunker Hill, but the Americans claimed victory because they ultimately lost less people. In March 1776, Washington marched into Boston and drove the British out. The British ended up withdrawing New York City. In July 1775, Congress sent the Olive Branch Petition to the king. The letter begged him to stop the war. The king left the colonists on red and ignored them, and sent 10,000 Hessians to fight them. Thomas Paine was an Englishman living in the colonies who believed in independence. He published a pamphlet called Common Sense in early 1776. Thomas called out the British and said they were corrupt and that it was ridiculous for America to be ruled by them. Paine thought the colonists gained no benefit from staying with the British. After this, many patriots demanded independence. Representatives of the Second Continental Congress began discussing independence in early 1776. After much debate, they decided to declare independence. Thomas Jefferson, the sexy beast! Oh my gosh, sorry, that was my PTSD. Thomas Jefferson was appointed to write the Declaration of Independence. The document was issued on July 4, 1776. The Declaration explained the reasons why the colonists wanted independence from Britain. The American army, to begin with, was poorly supplied and funded. In 1776, the British drove Washington and his troops out of New York City after the Long Battle of Long Island. In December 1776, Washington crossed the Delaware at night and defeated the Hessians at the Battle of Trenton. Over 1,000 Hessians were killed, and America claimed a great quantity of supplies, guns, and ammo. This victory assured Washington's command of the army and raised Patriot morale. In 1777, arguably the most important battle of the Revolution occurred, the Battle of Saratoga. The British, led by General Burgoyne, were defeated at Saratoga by Patriot General Horatio Gates. States. Burgoyne was defeated because he underestimated the Patriots. The American victory of Saratoga persuaded the French to back the Patriot effort and entered an alliance with the new nation. France also persuaded Spain to join the American side. British King George III declared war on France and Spain. When bankers from Holland loaned money to the Patriots, King George III declared war on Holland. In the winter of 1777 and 1778, the Continental Congress were forced to flee because the British took control of Philadelphia. Washington and his men were forced to spend the winter at Valley Forge. It was very cold and there was a shortage of food and supplies. Almost 1/4 of his men at Valley Forge died, but it allowed Washington and Baron von Steuben to train and discipline his troops. Also, Marquis de Lafayette,
everyone give it up for America's favorite fighting Frenchman!
A 19-year-old noble Frenchman, bought supplies and asked to serve under Washington with no pay. After the Battle of Saratoga, most of the fighting moved down to the south. The British hoped to benefit from Southern loyalists, runaway slaves, and a closer location to its Caribbean colonies. In the backcountry of South Carolina, Loyalists and Patriots formed guerrilla bands that carried out many vicious raids. When the war began, the British enjoyed superiority on the seas. In 1779, John Paul Jones became America's first naval hero. His ship, the Bonamahoy Richard, faced the larger British warship, the Cerberus. During the battle, Jones yelled, "I have not yet begun to fight!" Jones won the battle and boosted the morale of the Patriots. The final battle of the Revolution occurred in October of 1781. Washington, with French help, forced British General Charles and the main British army into a corner of Yorktown. The British were surrounded on land by American and French troops and were blocked at Chesapeake Bay by the French fleet. After a few days of combat, Cornwallis was forced to surrender. When word reached the British, they decided to give up the fight. The Treaty of Paris of 1783 formally ended the American Revolutionary War.
Woo! Yeah!
The British recognized American independence. Boundaries were extended. The U.S. would receive fishing rights off of Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. Each side would repay their debts, and the British would return any slaves they had captured.